Good afternoon. Today we are going to see a classification method based on SVM, support vector machine. So we will first see what is support vector machine. So SVM stands for support vector machine. So actually it is a relatively new classification method. We can use SVM for both linear as well as non-linear data. So we'll see what is SVM first. So actually in SVM, we need to find out hyperplanes, and hyperplanes is also known as decision boundary. So with the new dimension, SVM searches for the linear optimal separating hyperplane. So with an appropriate nonlinear mapping to a sufficiently high dimension, data from two classes can always be separated by a hyperplane. SVM finds this hyperplane using support vectors and margins. So the features of SVM is training can be slow, but accuracy of the SVM is high, and owing to their ability to model complex nonlinear decision boundaries. It is mainly used for classification and numeric predictions. The applications of SVM is handwritten digit recognition, object recognition, speaker identification, benchmarking, time series prediction test, etc. Now we'll see what is hyperplane, what is a margin related to the uh, SVM. So suppose we have two target classes, right? In our previous examples, we had seen like two target classes, like Bice computer is equal to S is one class, Bice computer is equal to no is one class, like that. So assume that the green dots here, green rounds here, that is representing like the data tuples from Bice computer is equal to yes, and the blue squares are representing the tuples that is belonging to Bice computer is equal to no. Now we can separate these two classes, that is Bice computer is equal to yes as well as Bice computer is equal to no, in using a line, a parallel line. So we can draw many lines, right? Not only one, many lines that can be separated by these two classes. So these lines, whatever we are drawing, that we can call it as a hyperplane. That is the parallel lines that is separating the two classes, we can call it as a hyperplane. Now what is support vectors, right? Suppose in the first figure you can see one line, this line, that is one hyperplane that is separating the S class and no class. Now I can draw a line parallel to the hyperplane, and it is close to the or touching to the data tuples in the S classification. Similarly, in the other side, I can again draw another parallel line that is exactly touching the uh, no class tuples. Right now, we can see the distance between these two parallel lines. That is, it is represented by margin. We will call it as a margin, and you can see here the margin is very small. Now take the other figure. Instead of drawing a hyperplane in this way, if I'm just little tilting and drawing the hyperplane, this is another hyperplane that is separating these two classes. Now again I can draw one more line that is parallel to the hyperplane and touching the nearest points of this particular class. Similarly, here also I can draw a parallel line that is just touching the this class tuples, nearest tuples of this class. Now you see the distance between these two lines, the margin is high, right? So large margins we will be getting. In this example, it is small margin. So what is our aim is, we need to find out a hyperplane that is giving us a large margin. We need to find out a hyperplane that is giving a large margin, right? So that our predictions will be more accurate. Now you can see in the second figure, for this parallel lines, it is touching this point as well as this point, right? And through with that point only I could draw this particular line. So I can call these data tuples as support vectors. Here in this line also, in this particular line also, I'm just touching this data tuple, and almost this data tuple, right? So these are called these three, I can call it as again support vectors, right? That is, this support vectors are allowing us to draw a margin actually, so that whatever it is coming beyond this margin, whatever the points coming beyond this margin, it is belonging to this class, and whatever the points that is coming belonging to this apart from this margin, it is in this particular class. So once again I'm telling, this is the hyperplane. Okay, so in between two classes we can draw many hyperplanes. Okay, in between two classes we can able to draw many hyperplanes. Our aim for the better classification and prediction purpose, our aim is we need to find out the large margin hyperplanes, the hyperplane that is giving the large margin. So this hyperplane margin is these two, and this is the margin. For this hyperplane, this is the margin. So you can see this is giving a large margin. So our aim is to find out a large hyperplane which is giving a large margin. For this, what is helping us, the support vectors are helping us to find out this large margin. So support vectors are the vectors that is exactly partitioning this into this particular class, and this line is partitioning the members into this particular class. So this is known as the support vector, and this is known as the hyperplane, and the distance between these two lines is known as the margin. Now we'll see another example. See here you can see many examples, like here it is. This is one, suppose this is class 1A1, this is class 2, sorry, class 1 C1, this is class 2 C2. This is one class and this is one class, and it is attributes A1 and A2. And you can see we can draw the hyperplane in different ways. This is one way to draw the hyperplane, and here in this margin, this is another way to draw the hyperplane. This is yet another way to draw the hyperplane. Now if I am drawing this hyperplane in this way, see, in this way, this is the support vector. I can consider for this line, this point is the support vector. For this line, this is the support vector. But if I'm drawing with respect to those two support vectors, the margin is very small. Right, the margin is very small. In another way, suppose I'm drawing the hyperplane in this way, then these two are my support vectors. This point and this point is support vector for Bayes computer is equal to S, and this point and this point are the support vectors for the Bayes computer is equal to no. Now if I'm taking the distance between these two lines, it is a large margin. So this large margin, our aim is to find out like this hyperplanes that is giving the large margin, so that our predictions will be more accurate. Now the separating hyperplane, whatever the hyperplanes we had seen here, right? The separating hyperplanes, I can represent that hyperplane is can be written as W dot product X plus B is equal to 0. So separating hyperplane can be written as W dot product X plus B is equal to 0. So for W is equal to, it is W1, W2, etc. Wn, it is the weight vector, and B is a scalar. Now for a 2D, it can be written as W0, plus w1 x1 plus w2 x2 is equal to 0 in this example, right? So I can write this hyperplane as in this format: w0 plus w1 x1 plus w2 x2 is equal to 0. Now the hyperplane defining the sides of the margin. Now these two lines, this is one margin and this is the side of the another margin. So I can the hyperplane defining the sides of the margin can be represented as h1 is equal to w0 plus w1 x1 plus w2 x2 greater than or equal to 1 for yi plus 1, and h2 is equal to w0 plus w1 x1 plus w2 x2 less than or equal to minus 1 for yi equal to minus 1. So any training tuples that fall on the hyperplane h1 or h2, that is the sides defining the margin, are support vectors. That's what we told. Any training tuple or any tuple that is falling on this margin, for example this one, these two, right, in this side these two, is called as a support vectors, as I explained. So this becomes a constraint quadratic optimization problem. So quadratic objective function and linear constraints, that using that we can define the things. Now the complexity of a trained classifier is characterized by the number of support vectors rather than the dimensionality of the data. So always the complexity we are going to design or define based on how many support vectors are there rather than how many attributes are there. So the support vectors are the essential or critical training tuples that lie closest to the decision boundary. So if all other training examples are removed and the training is repeated, the same separating hyperplane would be found. The number of support vectors found can be used to compute an upper bound on the expected error rate of the SVM classifier, which is independent of the data dimensionality. Thus, an SVM with a small number of support vectors can have good generalization even when the dimensionality data is high. That means if the number of attribute is more also, right, a small of number of support vectors are there, will get a more good generalization. Now suppose here we are telling that it's for linear data. You can exactly you can divide, you can have a margin, etc. Now if when it is coming to a non-linear data, if it is the data tuples what we are having, it is a non-linear kind, then instead of computing the dot product of the on the transformed data, right, we can apply some kind of kernel functions. Instead of calculating the dot product, we can apply the kernel functions. So mainly we are using three kernel functions: polynomial kernel of degree h, which is k of xi comma xj is equal to xi dot xj plus 1 whole to the power h. Another one is Gaussian radial basis functional kernel, k of xi comma xj is equal to e to the power minus modulus of xi minus xj whole square divided by 2 sigma square. Another one is sigmoid kernel, where k of xi comma xj is equal to tan h k xi dot xj minus sigma. So these are the kernel functions. This is mainly used for the non-linear functions. Now, so SVM, as I told, the main thing is finding a hyperplane, right, that is giving the large margin, right, and also number of the attributes are more, also not a problem. We'll get a high quality data. The only thing is we'll need to try to minimize the number of support vectors. Right, now we'll just compare the neural network that we did, neural network and SVM. So neural and SVM is actually deterministic algorithm, but neural network is non-deterministic algorithm, right? Now SVM is we will get nice generalization properties. Neural network generalizes, but doesn't have the strong property. But SVM is hard to learn, right? But neural network compared to SVM, we can easily learn and apply using SVM. Using kernels can learn very complex functions. In neural network, to learn complex functions, we need to use multi-layer perception or non-trivial methods. So that's about SVM method, right? Now we are moving to another method, that is associative classifications. So we'll see associative classifications. So what is an association and what are frequent item set? All those things you would have studied in the earlier classes. So we'll just brush up what is an association, what is frequent item set, etc. So whatever this studied concepts of association rule mining, that can be utilized in classification process also, classification purpose also. So in generally association rules, right? If you wanted to find out a particular association rule, for example, here it is given one association rule, P1 intersection P2, right? Intersection etc. P1 gives a class is equal to C with a minimum, with a confidence and support. So you know that to find out like this one association rule, right, we'll have two-step process. One is we need to find out the frequent item set, right? Then after finding out the frequent item set, we need to find out the rules. The rules is that is satisfying minimum support and minimum confidence. So we'll get a number of rules, right? Association rules. Among those rules, whichever the rules that is satisfying the minimum support and minimum confidence, we will call it as a strong association rule. So there are different algorithms to find out frequent item set and strong association rules. So you studied the methods like a priori algorithm, FP growth, etc. for finding the frequent item set. So the output of a priori or FP growth algorithm is the frequent item set. Now, if you are getting a set of frequent item set, we'll calculate the confidence and support for each rule, right? And and then whichever the rules that is satisfying minimum confidence and minimum support, that we are taking it as a strong association rules. So the same process or whatever we are getting, that strong association rules and frequent item set, that we can make use in the classification process also. So that is known as associative classification. So in associative classification also, there are mainly the following steps. First one is, as I told, we need to mine the data to find the strong association between frequent patterns and class labels. Then association rules are generated in the form of intersections. First P1 intersection, P2 intersection, etc., Pn, etc. Now organize the rules to form the rule-based classifier. So this process is familiar for you, right? Now why this is effective? It explores highly confident association among multiple attributes and may overcome some constraints introduced by decision tree induction, which considers only one attribute at a time, right? And associative classification has been found to be often more accurate than some traditional classification methods. Now, coming to the different types of association methods. So there are mainly three types of associative classification method known as CBA, CMAR, and CPAR. So we'll see one by one what it is and how it is working. The first one is, but one thing in mind is that all the three methods are based on frequent item set and strong association rules. So to go through all these three methods, first we need to find out what are the frequent item sets using any of the algorithms, right? After finding the frequent item set, you need to form the association rules. Then after forming the association rules based on the given confidence and support, we need to find out what all are the strong association rules. These steps are common for all these three methods. Coming to CBA method, CBA stands for classification based on association. So we'll see what CBA method is doing. So actually CBA is one of the earliest and simplest algorithms for associative classification. So CBA uses actually an iterative approach to frequent item set mining, similar to that described for a priori. So you know that a priori how it is working, a priori algorithm. So almost similar method is used by CBA. So like a priori, you know that we to construct a frequent item set, we need to do multiple passes, right? So in CBA also we need to do multiple passes need to be make. Then when we are doing multiple passes on the data, and then we derive the frequent item set. These frequent item sets are used to generate and test longer item sets. So in general, the number of passes, how many number of passes we need to do in the tuples is made is equal to the length of the longest rule found. Now the complete set of rules satisfying minimum confidence and minimum support thresholds are found and then analyzed for inclusion in the classifier. So CBA uses actually a heuristic approach to construct the classifier, where the rules are organized according to the decreasing precedence based on their confidence and support. So if a set of rules needs to be considered, first we need to check that which is having the highest confidence and highest support. That rules we are going to add in our decision list of the classifier. So in that way we are going to make the classifier. That's about CBA. So CBA again, it is like we are finding the frequent item set, then we are finding the strong association rules, then the strong association rules we are arranging in some order, and whatever the rules that is required for classifier, what are the rules that is needed for classifier, that we are taking based on the which is having highest confidence and support. Now the second method is CMAR. So CMAR stands for classification based on multiple association rules. Classification based on multiple association rule. So here how we are doing classification is we are doing some kind of statistical analysis on multiple rules. So CMAR is differs from CBA in its strategy of how it is differing from CBS, its strategy for finding the frequent item set mining. So actually CBA is making use of a method similar to a priori algorithm, that is it is going for multiple passes and all. Now you had studied one more method, that is FP growth, frequent pattern growth, that is avoiding the multiple passes in the data tuples. So CMAR is making use of a FP growth method or a variant of FP growth algorithm to find the complete set of rules which is satisfying minimum confidence and minimum support threshold. So CMAR actually uses an enhanced FP growth that maintains the distribution of class labels among tuples satisfying each frequent item set. Now, a classifier in a CMAR operates differently than CBA. Suppose we are given a tuple X to classify and that only one rule satisfies or matches with X. Okay, suppose we are given a tuple X, but only one rule is that satisfies or matches X. So in such a case is actually trivial case. We simply assign the class label of the rule. Suppose instead of that more than one rule satisfy X, not one rule. One rule means it's a trivial case. We just need to give that particular label for that one. Suppose more than one rule satisfies the X. So these rules form, actually with that we can form a rule set called S. That which rule would be used to determine the class label of X. So we are having a set of rules, right? X is the tuple and we are having a set of rules called as S. Now, to do the classification purpose, which rule we will use among the set of rules? So CMAR instead of considers multiple rules when making its class prediction. It divides the rules into groups according to class labels. So all rules within a group share the same class label and each group has a distinct class label. So that is the method used by the CMAR. Now coming to the third one, that is CPAR. CPAR is classification based on predictive association rules. Classification based on predictive association rules. So during classification, CPR employs somewhat different multiple rule strategy than CMAR. Now here, if more than one rule satisfies a new tuple X, the rules are divided into groups to predict the class label of X. So based on expected accuracy, right? So what we are doing in a CMAR is, sorry, CPAR is slightly different from CMAR. Suppose there are multiple, more than one rule satisfies a new tuple X. The rules are divided into groups according to the class, right? But CPR uses the best K rules of each group to predict the class label of X, right? CPR make use of the best K rules, not all the rules, the best K rules to predict the class label of X. By considering the best K rules rather than all of the rules of a group, it avoids the influence of lower ranked rules. So the accuracy of CPAR on the numerous data set was shown close to that of the CMAR. Anyway, but CPR generates far fewer rules than CMAR. It shows much efficiency than CMAR, right? So these are the three associative classification methods: CBR, CMAR, CPAR. And as you know, the more efficient one among all this is CPR, because it's among the all set of rules, it will take few K rules and it will be avoiding the low ranking rules. So I'm just concluding in this video. We had seen two classification methods. One is SVM and another one is classifications based on associative methods. So SVM, it is support vector machine. So what we have to do is, in a plane, we need to mark, we need to spot all our data tuples, right? Then we need to find out a hyperplane. We can draw many hyperplanes, but we need to find out a hyperplane that is going to give you the maximum margin. So when you are drawing a hyperplane, parallel to that hyperplane, you can draw two margins. If it is two classes, means two margins we can draw, and the data tuples that is touching that particular margins are called as support vector machines, right? Sorry, support vectors. So whenever the number of support vectors is less, we can will get a more generalized way of prediction. Then the second one that we had seen is our classification based on association rules. So in this, first we need to find out the frequent item sets. To find out frequent item set, we can make use of any algorithms. So mainly CBA making use of multiple pass algorithms like a priori. CMAR and CPR make use of FP growth methods, where we can avoid multiple passes. And we need to find out the association rules, and based on the given support and threshold, we need to calculate the strong association rules. Now we need to group the association rules, and among those set of rules, we need to find out which is apt for the classifier models, that is find out using different methods. Thank you.